Welcome to the Unspoken Podcast, a space for conversations we've swept under the carpet. These are the ones that we avoid, the ones we lower our voices for, and ultimately the ones that we most need to have. So together we'll be exploring themes such as culture, social conditioning, identity, grief, shadow work, sexuality, and art, along with inherited patterns through an Irish lens. Because what remains unspoken doesn't disappear, it continues to shape us. Hello, my name is Claire and welcome back to the Unspoken Podcast. And I'm very honoured to invite our next guest on. She is a Druid, Seanchaí, which I'm really looking forward to chatting more about that specifically. She's also the chosen chief of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids. Hopefully I'm saying that all right. And she was a psychologist and is a mother and very much a woman of the land is what I see. So I am very honoured to welcome Eimear Burke.
Well, I'm delighted to be here, Claire, and thank you for inviting me to join you.
Me too, Eimear. I'm genuinely as excited and looking forward to this as someone listening because I have a sneaking suspicion there's going to be a lot of wisdom seeding through here. So why don't we just even start with what shaped your path? I'm so curious, like what led you to where you are now, to being a Druid?
It's a long story. Look at it. I was brought up like most Irish people in a Roman Catholic family. I come from Offaly. That's where I was born. And I was never religious, although we had to go to mass every day. Interesting, I was educated by nuns in primary school, but they taught us the Irish myths. I learned about Druids when I was in primary school, not knowing that they were a thing in modern life. But I remember I was 9 in religion class and it just occurred to me that the God the nun was talking about didn't exist. And I knew that so strongly, and yet I panicked because I thought I was going to go to hell for, thinking such things. And I never lost that. So I remained an agnostic for years and years and years and years and years. And yet just did as I was told and just carried along doing what I was, within my family from a religious point of view, but never actually having had any faith. And there were 2 things I was going to do in my life. One was going to be a doctor. My father was a GP, so I wanted to be a doctor and I was going to go to Africa, save the world. I was too lazy at school to get the points for medicine, so I didn't do that. Thank goodness, because that would have taken me a different path. However, I am a psychologist, an energy healer, shamanic therapist, and a herbalist. So holistically, I've come around full circle. But I did go to Africa. I went as a nurse later on. So when I went to Kenya, that's where I was in Turkana, the north of Kenya, I was very interested in the indigenous worldview and tried to find as much information as I could about local cures and herbs and things. And I was only just dipping my toe into the water. And when I came back from there, I did a degree in psychology. I met my first husband there. And then after I did my degree, we went to Lesotho in Southern Africa. And that is where I became interested in met actual healers. And I started doing courses in it. And I was even a student member of the traditional healers of South Africa. And then I left, I was there for over 3 years and I came back and did a master's in Trinity in counselling psychology and just got my professional qualification. And that was kind of open to alternative ideas. And then I set up in private practice once I got my master's. And then I was offered a 1-year contract in the Development Studies Centre in Kimmage Manor just to cover somebody's sabbatical for a year. I stayed 27 years because I was a psychologist and because I had experience working in Africa, I got the job just to cover for the year and I ended up staying because the person never came back. And then we set up a pilot project in Tanzania. And
wow.
In the meantime, I had separated from my first husband and my second, and he was coming with me to do some work. He was just accompanying me and he wanted to keep himself amused and he was interested in indigenous healing. And one of my students' brother was one. And so they were introduced and then we became fast friends. And that was another doorway into, what would you say, looking into the other world. We had lost so much here. Mm-hmm. It's almost like this gave me permission to look at this. So I had initiations with Shaban, my healer friend. I also had worked with a medicine woman from the US here in Ireland. And I just loved the nature connect. I loved honoring the 4 directions and ritual. Having rejected ritual from the Catholic side of things and being very it jarred with me. Even the word prayer jarred with me, and the notion of deity jarred with me. All of those things that I eventually managed to work out in my system. So having worked with this woman, Heather Principe, this American woman, and Shabana, this was all wonderful, but none of it was from my landscape. I always felt I was kind of fake. Or not that I was fake. I wasn't being disingenuous, but actually this isn't really mine. I get it. I love it, but it's not really mine. And I was in a bookshop with Shaban, actually, my friend. He came over for 3 summers to run workshops with us. And I found a book, The Modern Day Druidess by Cassandra Easton. And she mentioned Druidry. And it was really pragmatic that you could be a Druid in an apartment in a city, and you could get 4 pot plants and that could be your grove. And she mentioned OBOD, the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids, at the back of the book. And she had done her training there with them. So I went online, and they have an introductory course, and I didn't know whether I should do it or not. I was meant to do a psychotherapy supervisor's course, which is a sensible professional thing to do. And I knew I couldn't do both, and I was dithering between one and the other. And I thought, to hell with it, I'll click on the Druidry. And as soon as I did, this feeling just rushed up inside me, and I knew I'd done the right thing. I had done other supervision training courses, but not this particular one. But I never did it. I continued. I did the introductory course and couldn't wait to sign up for the actual course. And I did, and the rest is history. So that was my background. It was like Druidry gave me the key to my own landscape. And although, OBOD is based in the UK now, but it's a global order. We have members all over the world. And initially in the first grade, the Bardic grade, which is around finding your own creative expression through your connection with the landscape and the elements. And of course, we're very, very lucky in these islands that, what we know about Druidry comes from this climate, a temperate climate. We're very, very lucky. A lot of the stories on the course initially were Welsh stories, and I thought, I can't be looking at those until I look at my own. And of course, I remembered the myths that I had learned in primary school, and then I went back. And not only that, I went back to the Irish language.
Beautiful.
And our ancestors, we don't know what our Druid ancestors, how they actually practiced, because theirs was an oral tradition. They never committed to anything to paper. I think it was considered a lesser form of wisdom or knowledge to put things on paper, that you kept everything within your head. But we can glean from the Roman accounts of Druids. Now theirs is heavily biased because their brief was to destroy the power of the Druids in both Gaul and Britain, and they succeeded in doing that. And then the accounts by the early Christian monks in Ireland, again filtered through a Christian lens. I won't take from it, everybody writes through or sees the world through their own lens. But again, a very, very rich source, but not detailed accounts of how Druids practiced. But you can glean from the mythology, and then you can also glean from the Irish language how they might have engaged with the landscape. There's one way. Druids always have their ceremonies in circles, and we always start in the east. We go sunwise. And how I know that is because the word for behind me is they've heard them to the west of me. So we are oriented towards the sun. So you get these beautiful clues within the Irish language as to how our ancestors saw the world. And so I joined the order, and then I didn't know any other OBOD members, and it was myself, my husband, late husband Howard, and one other person. We started. I did our first ceremony at the autumn equinox, and Shaban, my Tanzanian friend, was there, and he said, "You've been given a key. You must continue." He gave me permission on my land to start doing those ceremonies, and I did, and I've been doing them since 2003. And I haven't looked back, and now we have a lovely community of all sorts of people, not all Druids, but people for whom that nature connection, the landscape, the wheel of the year has a resonance for them. And for people for whom ritual is very important.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And it wasn't until I was in the order 7 years before I went to a gathering in Glastonbury. I was too shy. And then I found my home. And I found it over there. And it was really, really interesting. It really healed the wound between the two countries for me. Because I didn't know how I was going to be accepted. And I was. And then in 2020, I became the chosen chief.
Beautiful.
Another miracle.
Wow. What a journey, Eimear. And even when you were saying that you got that feeling on your body, it was reminding me of that Irish word, the Slívini. Because I feel like there's so much words we don't have in the English language that the Irish, like you named, it so beautifully encapsulates. And I think that's really fascinating about how you're sharing, even that directions, it's already intertwined. It's already alchemized in the language. Yeah, wow,
very,
beautiful.
very rich. And it's interesting. So when I'm in Glastonbury and I'm speaking or I'm saying, I will be doing it in Irish. I also translate. People come up to me and say, "I don't know what you were saying, but the hair was standing in the back of my neck." Goodness, that sounds just like a magical language. I love Irish. I'm not completely Liafa, but it's even Lamanchanga. But when I hear my Welsh Druid colleagues speaking in Welsh in ceremony, I'm tingling. And I don't know what they say. I know the context because I know what they're doing.
Okay.
And again, there's something magical about these languages. The Celtic languages are just, there's something sacred about them.
Yeah, completely. And when you were saying that, then obviously we know the tradition wasn't written down for the Druids. Do you feel we're maybe practicing in the same way that our ancestors did? Or do you feel it's a new form of Druidry that's being shared?
I'd say yes.
Great. Good to know.
Now this is just maybe a crazy notion. I have a sense that we share similar values. And if you look at indigenous rituals around the world, they're very similar to what we do. The colors and the textures are different.
Yeah.
Honoring the ancestors, the importance of ritual, the importance of connection with your landscape, your ancestral connection, the notion of community and healing. All those elements are similar no matter where you are. Just like I say, the colors and the textures are different. So I feel we share similar values, but now I would see Druidry as an organic spiritual path based in the land, but is relevant to the times we're living in. And it's not cast in stone. And I think, there are some people who who are reconstructionists but that tends to, in my book, it tends to be very rigid. Then we get lost. It has to be the only way. And we're constantly evolving. And I think, I think the fundamental values are the same, but we are trying to weave the threads between our landscape and the modern world in which we live, because we are not living in the past, however much we might like to. Sometimes people maybe glorify the past.
Yeah.
If we go right back to the time of the Druids, there were slaves in Ireland.
Yes.
St. Patrick came over as a slave. People were enslaved. The Vikings enslaved us. When Irish people went off on raids, they came back with slaves. That was part of the world. We can't go back there. Anyway, but so I think it's about some strings. Our lineage is broken, but then lineages are really strange things, particularly human lineages are highly flawed, I always say, because you don't really know who your father is or your grandfather is. You might think you do. So if you're going to be arrogant about lineage, I think we need to be more humble.
Yeah. And I love how you go on.
And not being dogmatic, because we have this adage in the order, if you ask 10 druids what druidry is, you get 11 different answers. So, and within our order, it's a very diverse membership. I like to describe it as a salad, not a puree. So within a salad, you have all these ingredients and you have different colors, flavors and textures, and each one could speak for itself. Where in a puree, everything is blended. So we have, Christians who are Druids, Muslims who are Druids, Buddhists, Jews, Hindus, animists, polytheists, Wiccans, pagans. And we never ever argue over whether there's one true God, too many, or what they do. We have shared values. We can stand in circle, holding a ceremony in keeping our landscape. And we value wisdom, responsibility, service, ethics. We don't have a list of sins or commandments. So you live your life according to your own internal moral compass. We don't tell people what to do. And that's why I think it's such a large order, because there's some people who want to be told what to do. And I say to people, if you are looking for certainty, you're on the wrong bus here. For a lot of people who come, they've left a religious system that told them what to do. They can be very rigid. And so some of our members will never go back to that. And others say, no, I still value it. And I want to weave it in with my Druidry. And the way our order is and the teachings are is that you can do that. Just really beautiful synthesis between different spiritual paths, because so many threads link us.
I was going to ask you, how would you explain Druidry? But what I heard is a natural weaving of spirituality connected to the land that meets modern life, which I really also align with. I think if we're sharing work now, it has to meet these new, challenges and a connection to everything that's happening in the world. Just our access is very different now.
Yes, it is. So I see it as we look to the seasons and the landscape as a metaphor for our lives, and that we have an inner world. And that as part of our training, it's about developing that inner world connection. We do something called a light body exercise. It's becoming aware, allowing the awareness of your light body or your I suppose, your electromagnetic field, for the want of a better word, but we call it the light body, becoming aware of that and takes you into an altered state of consciousness, which allows you to go into your own sacred grove. And then we have the outside landscape. And there's that notion when your inner landscape is in sync with the outer landscape, then there's that sense of harmony and balance in your life. So we follow the wheel of the year. So every 6 weeks we have a ceremony. So on Sunday now, we're at Lunasa now, and we will have a ceremony to honor the early harvest. We will look at the early harvest within our own lives. So every 6 weeks you have a reminder, something for you to reflect on, but there's nobody judging you. And what I like about it is it gives you that option. Generally, in the modern world, on the 1st of January, people, make New Year's resolutions. And then by day 5, the 5th of January, they're gone out the window. And you say, oh, okay, I have another year to sort those ones out. Here's every 6 weeks, and nobody's going to call you to account. But it's that gentle reminder of where you are in your life. And the wheel of the year now is a modern synthesis. So that was created by Gerald Gardner, the founder of modern Wicca in Britain, and his friend Ross Nichols, who's the founder of Ovates.
Okay.
So they were friends, but they were aligned, but then they just took two different strands of nature-based spiritual path. They didn't fall out, but they just, and I think it was suited their temperament. But that wheel of the year, so when you look to the myths and legends, you have the fire festivals and the stories take place. Funny now, Imolca's never mentioned in the myths.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you feel that is?
I don't know. I have no idea. And it's really interesting. So you have Bealtaine, Lunasa and Samhain. So all of the stories in the myths, it's one of those times. Something happens in Tara at these times. So you've got your four-fire. And I don't know why with Bridget. I just don't. Anyway, it could be somebody's going to say, you haven't studied that. And I said, you're right. I haven't. I need to look it up. But so you've got your 4 fire festivals and they're recorded in the myths, in the manuscripts. And then you have the 4 solar festivals that are not written about. Nobody mentions in the stories at the winter solstice and at the equinox, but they're documented in the landscape. They're there in the monuments. All the records are there. So you've got so many of those aligned either to sunrises or sunsets. Yeah. At the solstices and the equinoxes. So when you bring these two, so you've got, for the want of a better word, Celtic. It's heavily loaded and quite inaccurate because it's a linguistic term, but I think people know what we mean. So you've got these traditional Irish festivals, shall we say, the agricultural festivals. And then you have the ancient ones from, Neolithic times, and you bring those together and you create a beautiful wheel of the year. So it's like bringing, something from the ancient past to the past. Right from the past, right into the present, that we now have a beautiful synthesis and a wheel to follow.
I never knew of that, the differences in that sense when you name it like that the land is representing the other festivals that aren't the fire ones. Fascinating. And I know you're so deep in mythology, as you said, even from primary school, which is, it's actually amazing to hear that that's where some of it came from. Yeah, it's beautiful. Do you feel mythology actually reveals deeper truths for us sometimes?
Oh, yeah. So, oh, yeah. I mean, it might have been a time when I was much, much younger. I thought, I wonder, I love these stories, but have they any bearing on our times? And yes, they do. So I love our Irish myths and I like to work on those. And I like to tell them from the perspective of a woman character in the story, hear her voice, because they're very patriarchal. But what's really interesting so I have a show called Manona Heron in a Guffane, The Women of Ireland in Her Own Voice. So I have 9 stories from the woman's perspective. And when I was looking at these and researching these and then writing them in my own way, etc., and a number of them have lost their child. Women have not been able to bring up their children. So you have Morna, who's Finn McCool's mother. She had to give him away to keep him safe from the enemies of the sons of Morna. Lu's mother. Yeah. Her father, Balor, threw Lu over the cliff and Birog, the Druid, saved him. You have Sive, Oisin's mother. And it's like, this is really interesting. And that's a modern story, where women and fathers, not being able to look after their children, albeit for different reasons, their children taken from them. And I thought, wow, that's a really interesting theme. That wound goes way, way back, right up to the present day. Themes of grief, madness, rage, betrayal, they're still here. Yeah. And stories about unethical leaders, democratic populations electing mad leaders into power, and you go, oh, some things never change. And the abuse of power and oppression and oppressing people. And then you have heroines standing up and saying, our heroes standing up. Yeah. We need to stand up for the rights of others. So these stories still have their place in these.
Yeah. Beautiful. I hadn't put that link with the children. And when you say it, it's like you can think of all of the stories where that's happened, or the loss of a child, or, you know, even the abuse of a woman sometimes in the mythology in different ways. So I feel I'm naturally making that link to the mother and baby homes. And we've just spoken about that beforehand. Is really fascinating. Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. And on the storytelling piece, I suppose, you are a Seanchaí, so I'd love to hear, what does that even mean to you, Eimear, to be that?
Was it funny? There's different meanings. There's some people say, no, you're not a Seanchaí or a Scaley. You know, definitions, as soon as you start with them, there has to be a right definition and a wrong definition. And then you have to live up to the definition, and it's a really hard one. I suppose I tell stories that call to me. I mean, I hear other storytellers. I have lots of storytelling friends, and they are amazing tellers. And I thought I could hear them, and I really enjoyed it. I'll never tell that story. I can't. It's not mine to tell. Okay. And it's not that they're taking ownership of it, but I know it's not mine and it doesn't suit my style of telling. But I do like to go in and dive into the story and find, it's usually a woman, to find her voice. I think it's a powerful thing to do. And it's also an empowering thing. I feel very empowered to tell these stories. And there's a huge amount of magic, healing, insights, humor in these stories. And I like to be able to see my audience. So small settings, and to weave magic and take people into the other world with me to hear the story. And for people to feel, you know, sometimes people cry, sometimes people are scared, and then others are laughing. All these emotions, so that actually people are taken out of themselves, just like what you do when you watch a film.
Yeah.
Or if you're reading a book. These have huge values. It takes you out of yourself, or you place yourself within the story. And a good story, like a good film or a good book, is that you are either standing in the shoes of the protagonist or one character in the book, in the story. How powerful that can be. And it can help you look at yourself in an indirect way. Because taking a good look at yourself, it can be quite challenging, not easy. But when you see it through a character in a story, that can be really profound.
Yeah.
And less painful and less impossible. And maybe you're more open to following a thread.
Yeah. Beautiful.
It raises possibilities for maybe some kind of change, some kind of transformation, without it being put in your face to make changes. Because telling somebody what to do or what not to do never works. But somehow through a story, and that's not my intention. I'm telling the story because I want this woman's voice to be heard. I'm not trying to change anyone out there, because I don't know who's out there or what their story is. But I want to be heard, or I want this woman's voice to be heard. And it's amazing how people will come up and say, that really moved me, or that made me think so much. Pennies dropped or light bulbs went on. And I won't know that there's somebody there for whom that happens unless they tell me.
Yeah, yeah. Beautiful. I hear resonance, putting yourself in their shoes, and actually maybe some hope through what you've shared.
Yeah, I mean, there's one I tell of Sai, for example. So Sai is Oisín's mother. Nobody knows anything about her. She appears as a deer. Fimacool takes her to his house. She turns back into a woman. They fall in love. She gets pregnant. He goes away for a week. He comes back. She's gone. That's it. And then a few years later, he sees a little boy up in Ben Bulben and recognizes him as his son. That's it. And I know he spent years looking for her. So I thought, wait a second. So I went off to Tirnanog. It's Simon, she told me. So I tell it from her. I tell her story.
Okay. So you journey perhaps shamanically or in your own way to the other world, and collect that version of the story and bring it back.
So I tell it from her point of view. And it's around grief, and it's around wildness, and around, so in that story, a sorcerer who's very, very evil pursues her, and when she refuses his proposal, he turns her into a deer out of revenge. And so my take on it, because that's like, oh, here goes another oppressed woman and, you know, violent man. She becomes wild like a deer. She takes off. And that this deer wildness, because Fionn is the Irish word for wild, and Fia is deer. And I just play with the words, and how this traumatic experience is a moment of transformation for her, a moment of empowerment. She sneaks out through a colobrack and enchanted doorway from the other world into our world, and then she meets Fimacool, and then the sorcerer captures her again, and she goes back into the other world. But again, she becomes wild again and escapes, and then she's freed and then gives birth to Oisín. And she knows she has to send him back through the veil because he needs to meet his father. Our children, we need to let them go. We need to allow them forge their own destinies. We don't stop loving them, but it can be heartbreaking to let them go.
Yeah.
it's about, he hopes that she will come back, and she would like to, but she needs to stay where she is, where her soul needs to be. Where she can be truly herself. And that's what happens, I think, when we die. And my husband died 11 years ago.
Okay.
And it was heartbreaking. But he was ready to go, and he had a beautiful passing. And I'd never bring him back. I'd never call him back, because he has to do what his soul needs to do. So this story was really helpful for me. And I was like, yes, this is articulating grief and the price I pay for grief. So the price I pay for love is the grief I have. That's really profound, because then I'm not a victim. And each one of us has our own path and our own destiny to fulfill. And we have to let people go. Our children or our loved ones. So I think those kind of stories, for me, have a huge importance, because I'm in them.
Yeah. I love the complete uniqueness of your journey to them, to bring it back for us. In maybe it's a slightly different voice that we're hearing, but how beautiful is that for us all, actually, to receive that empowered feminine voice? Because I feel like you've mentioned that a few times. It's like this reclamation.
I have. Have you noticed? Yes.
I did now, Eimear. Yes, for sure. And where do you feel we're at with the feminine voice now? You're reclaiming, but where do you think female voice is in our modern culture now?
I think it's coming out. I think it's being heard. I think it's lovely. And it's more and more what I like, because of the age I am now. I'm a hag, and I just love being an owl one. And I have loads of energy, so I'm not decrepit. Not yet, anyway. But I love being the age I am, and then my voice can be heard, because my 20-year-old self was shy, insecure, frightened, and nothing to say. And who didn't trust herself. And now I do. Okay. And I really enjoy that. And I'm meeting so many more women of my age, and certainly women older, and then now younger ones coming up and finding their voice. And it needs to be very articulated, because it's funny when you think of all the, manosphere stuff.
Yes.
And it's quite toxic. Cities are toxic, but then you also, coming up, you have this feminine voice, which I think is beautiful. I suppose maybe there are many different voices. Not all I'll agree with, but I just love of the older woman, because I don't have to prove myself anymore, and I don't have to worry about, am I thin enough, long enough, short, whatever the things that, whatever the societal messages are thrown at women. They're not sent my way. And I don't have to take them on board. And the relief of that, it doesn't mean I'll have an active life. It doesn't mean I'm, just at home sitting by the fire in a rocking chair. I'm out there doing things, and I really enjoy it. My life is very, very exciting. So, for which I am very, very grateful. I could never have predicted this for me. I always thought when I was younger that you'd hit your 50s and then you'd wear mammy clothes and then you just kind of disappear. That's what I thought happened. And I became wild when I hit 50. The person I am, I prefer. How I look, I prefer when I was younger. So it's a really interesting thing. And I think more and more women's voices is coming out. And I want to encourage more women to speak out. There is a myth that women compete with each other and they're all bitches. That has not been my personal experience. I've met horrible women. I've met lovely women. I've met horrible men, and I've met I've been married to two really nice men. I was very lucky. But it's around supporting each other in a sisterhood, and our daughters coming along to support them.
Yeah. And I feel anyone even listening to this, hearing that you were self-conscious in your 20s is really inspiring, Like, I think I first saw you on Wisdom Keepers, just in those little snippets but your voice is so necessary.
Thank you. I think the biggest disservice I did to myself when I was younger is I didn't trust myself. I didn't trust my inner knowing. I suppose I was taught, always trust your elders, be respectful, which I have no argument. Now that I'm an old one now, I'm happy for everybody to be respectful. But I was taught to respect, which meant fear rather than actually a mutual process of respect.
Yeah.
But that, we didn't contradict our elders. We didn't question them. And my mother used to say, no, you could always be wrong. How I interpret, which is true. I mean, I think it's always good to question ourselves and interrogate our values, our ideas and thoughts. Absolutely. But I took it too far, which meant I'm always wrong. And that always listen to what the other person is saying. And I did that to my detriment. And I don't remember the first time I listened, and I kind of listened to myself against something else. I can't remember that. It might have been a gradual process. And then I look back and go, I trust myself now. Even if everybody else is saying something else and that's not how I experience this, I stay quiet and then I'll find, yeah, I was right, but I do think I would recommend any young person, regardless of their gender, just trust yourself. Start listening. Interrogate it. But when you have a deep sense, my no is always stronger than my yes. I trust my no. Sometimes my yes, I kind of question, maybe that's just a little bit of glitter here or sparkle that's attracting me that maybe I need to hold back on that. But my no, definitely I listen to that. 'Cause it hasn't let me down. And when I haven't trusted my no, I've let myself down. And even when everybody else around me is saying yes, yes, yes to whatever it is.
Yeah.
And I'm going, no. And I'm not always able to articulate why I feel the no. And I've actually got to this stage where I don't need to know cognitively what this no is about. It's just, I'm going with it. And invariably, it wins out. Whereas if it's a yes, it could be a bit of sparkle. It could be a bit of glitter that's attracting me. It's like, oh, and that'd be lovely. Or this person is charming. So I interrogate that more because it's like, we can get caught up in the glitter.
Yes, for sure. And for me, that feels like a gift of aging is the not explaining or the not questioning it. It's just, it's a no or it's a yes. When you said that, I really resonate. I think that comes with age that you stop explaining yourself.
Well, when I think of so often years ago trying to justify and trying to be nice about it and then thinking, which is the nicest way of saying this? And then the relief of no longer having to do that. Because what I found is that when I would say no to somebody, they wouldn't accept it anyway. And then why not? And I'm trying to justify it. Then I'd walk myself into another trap where now I've learned.
Yeah.
Because I'm convinced of it in here, I convey that is convincing to the other, or they're not going to get anywhere with me.
So trust, it sounds like trust has been that arrow for you. I wonder, how does someone start to trust themselves if they don't at all? How do we build that?
I suppose it's about listening to themselves. What do I think? What do I feel? Not what should I think? What should I feel? Testing it out in the smallest of places. And I do know that, if you have a feeling or a sense and you think you're the only one with this, and then you share with somebody and they go, I feel the same way. That's also validating.
Yes.
And it's again about how do you trust yourself and how do you trust somebody else? It's just taking little steps.
Yeah.
But I don't think you can really trust somebody unless you trust yourself first.
Yeah, I fully agree. That inner cultivation, for, like you said at the beginning, it's the inner world mirroring that outer world. And do you feel then that you're also inviting deeper intuition in, say, through your work or just that journey of trusting?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm not a technicolor, otherworldly person. I tend to be fairly grounded and sepia. I remember I was doing my shamanic training and people were saying, well, I was up in the pyramids and I saw 3 unicorns and rainbows, and I'm going, oh no, mine was very monochrome.
That's a new way I want to describe it. I'm very sepia.
Now, that is as valid as the technicolor. I think we all have our way of sensing and knowing and engaging and connecting. And when I was doing various energy trainings, I was doing, so you feel hot and cold and you feel this, and people, I got it. And I'm very, very ordinary. And I learned to trust that because it's grounded. And it's no less valid than anybody else's experience. Also, my gifts are different to others. Others may be way more gifted than me in X, Y, and Z. But this is my gift.
Yeah.
And it won't be that one. And that I don't have to be like anybody else, nor does anyone have to be like me. And that's really reassuring when you get to the stage of life. It's like, well, this is what I do. I remember a medicine woman and she was saying, this is a woman I did some sweat lodges with, and she was at the Grand Canyon and she met an old First Nations woman up there. And in that tribe where they lived, each of them had their own medicine, had some medicine to offer other people. And this old woman had one medicine, and that was some kind of flower petals. And she placed them in her mouth. And Heather's one said, this most amazing feeling experience came over her. And she said, I never saw that woman again, and how I wanted to have more of that medicine. So it was that simple thing that it doesn't matter whether you're many gifted or you've one thing. All of it is important.
Yeah.
And to trust that and know that maybe that's all you need to do, is all you need to be or how you need to be is one thing rather than being extraordinary. Of course, never comparing yourself to other people. That's always a mistake, I think.
Yeah.
And to trust your ordinariness, to trust that, the groundedness, we don't all sparkle. We don't all have sparks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's such a beautiful lesson because it is in this world of choice and, we've so many different opportunities and options that it's taken us away from maybe that one piece, like the petals in the mouth. That's it. Gorgeous. And now you probably have more information on this as well. The fact that sometimes I know in our tradition, your second name sometimes was the gift, the medicine that you had, is what I've heard from our tradition. So say like a cobbler could be someone who works with shoes, the Irish.
Oh, you mean the surname?
The surname, sorry, yeah. The surname. Okay. So I was just thinking of that when you were saying about the tradition you were working with, that everyone had their medicine, or if someone was keen, they may be a keener. I'm curious if you know much about that, or that's something that you connect to.
Well, my surname is Burke, which is a Norman name, so forget that one. My mother's side is O'Moran, the great ones. So I'm only 5 foot tall. Anyway, but her mother's name was Fahy. And I have come across, I don't know how true this is, that it comes from Foy, which is a prophet or a diviner.
Beautiful.
So whether it is, I don't know. And of course, not all, excuse me, not all Irish surnames applied to a gift can be, O'Dougan, the dark one.
Yes.
They don't all apply to a gift. But I do think there is magic in our names. And if we can understand the meaning, Corcoran means O'Corcra, the purple one.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't know what that's about. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I know you have maybe an interest specifically in like Irish place names as well.
I do, yeah. Because then you'll find the magic. It's such a pity the damage has been done to the psyche of the land and the spirit of the land by changing place names. I remember listening to a psychiatrist from Iceland a number of years ago at one of our winter gatherings. And he was talking about, I think Iceland, there's a strong connection or a sense of the other world and the otherworldly beings. But it's against the law to change a place name because you will offend the spirit of the place. And I thought, and there are so many places in Ireland with an English name. So I live in Three Castles. That is not the proper name. That's the English name. It's Bon O'Nuch, which is the land of the O'Dui who had come up from Cork. But I live near Freshford, which is a misnomer because the Irish for Freshford is Achaur, the fresh field, not the fresh ford. So when the O'Dui came up, they came through Barna, which is a gap in the hills, and looked down on the fresh land, Freshford. There's a place called Newtown Forbes in Longford, but the Irish for that is Unlis Brack. A brack is a lovely name. It means trout, it means speckled, and it means enchanted. Unlis Brack is the enchanted ford. So when I mentioned the Sive story, I talked about the Cola Brack. The Cola Brack is the enchanted doorway between this world and the other world. Place in Kerry called Cushcame na Cali, the footsteps of the Cailleach.
Beautiful.
So there's so when you anglicize it. Now I just heard recently, a few days ago, that where was it? I think North America, some First Nations gave the English names back to the government, and we could do that. Thank you, that's yours. We're going to reclaim it. And I know in Donegal they often cross out the English name. Or there's somebody else, Amarini Chron. She's a poet, an Irish language poet.
Okay.
She lives in Dublin, but she uses the Irish form, so she insists that's her address. But she has the postcode, so the postcode is where. So if we. And I love this, I'm going to do this. If we just write our address in Irish, the actual townland or the place name, and you have your postcode, it'll still be delivered. But again, it's that little act of reclamation.
Yeah.
You could call it subversive, but it's like, we're reclaiming the names. I mean, I go by my English name, but as a storyteller, I'm Eimear Burke, and I'm sorry I didn't change it a long, long, long time ago. And funny, my English friends all refer to me as Eimear Burke.
Do they? That's fascinating, isn't it?
My storytelling friends, if they're introducing me as a storyteller, it's Eimear Burke.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that idea, Eimear, of it, because it does, it feels actually just natural with the way you said that. We just give back the English names because they don't fully resonate.
Right.
Like, it's like what you were sharing there feels like spells, where it's the spells of the land and the magic that's dancing.
Right. Yeah. There's a bridge just at the bottom of my drive, and it's called Ardloo Bridge, or Lou. Now, I'm on a hill.
Yeah.
And They used to have Lunasa festivals here, not on my land, next door. So even though the bridge is down below and the road is called the Ardaloo Road, but I do think it maybe relates to this higher land.
Yes.
And dedicated to Lugh. You're talking going way, way, way back. And there's more magic.
Yeah, there's so much magic. And it's funny, you mentioned Uncoliok, and I wanted to ask you about her because you said, I'm the hag now. I feel more, your own words, that you feel like, embodied as her. I'm curious, do you feel a resonance now more so with her? Yeah, how has that developed?
I remember in my 30s coming across Clarissa Pinkola-Este's book, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And I just love this until I came to the part of the crone. I never read them. I couldn't.
Oh, really?
I just couldn't. No. And that's really interesting. And I still haven't read them. I need to go back. To that book. Couldn't. And then I had a croning ceremony and I turned 50, which is quite young. But I was ready. Now, I'm an elderly mother. I'm old enough to be my children's grandmother. I came into motherhood late in life.
Okay, I didn't realize.
38 and 42.
Okay.
But when I hit 50, I started to become wild. And I thought, I just love this. I don't have to worry. I don't ever want to go back to be in my 20s or my 30s. And it's been great ever since. I mean, I'm physically able. I'm physically well. So it's another thing if you're not able to. And like my mother's 90 and she had her second knee replaced last November, but she cycles to mass every day.
I love that.
We got her a new bike when she was 85 during COVID. And she says, I'm living it out. I'm not giving up. And all her family died young. My father died at 58. Her brothers died 58, 56. Her mother, dad was 79. But like her immediate family all died young. And here she is at 90. And there's one, she's first cousins who are in their 90s as well. But it's like one person from each sibling in a larger family. One descendant has lived into their 90s, where so many people have died, and she's not giving up. So I enjoy that because and I know some people do. They hit 60 and they go, "That's me now, finished. I'm nervous. I don't like to drive at night, and I don't like to go out." And you kind of what? Where I'm not afraid to walk out on my own at night. I I'm having loads and loads of experiences that I really, really enjoy. So, I'm honoring that, and I haven't bought into the societal notion that once you hit a certain age, nobody wants to hear what you have to say. You have nothing interesting to say. And I go, that's not true. Because I know when I was younger, I thought people are not particularly interesting. I think many of them weren't. And then as I got older, I had friends who were much older than me and began, wow, these people are fascinating. And there's something to remember that when people are in their 90s beyond, they have some wealth of resilience and resources that they have managed to tap into. I haven't done it in a while, Argentine tango. And one of the guys in my class died 2 years ago at 104.
My God, I love that.
He and I were on national television dancing when he was 103. And when he was a young fella at 98. And he was only sick for, say, a few weeks, maybe about a month before he passed. And he was in the Second World War. He was in the RAF, and he was Scottish, but of Irish parentage. He rescued the people from Belsen and came back to live in Ireland. I said, what's your secret? And something really mundane, like not having too much salt, and something else like moderation. But he danced. So he danced tango, social dancing, you name it. He was a dancer. What a role model. And I had another friend, Olivia Robertson. She's one of the founders of the Fellowship of Isis. She died at 96.
Wow.
And the energy, and it's in here. I'm also having younger friends for sticking with your own age mates. So my most of her contemporaries are gone, but she has lots of younger friends. And I remember my son saying when he was 20, he said, it's very important to have older friends. And he does. It's being able to find the wisdom in all generations. People say, the older generation, they're very old-fashioned. They're all this, that, and they're narrow-minded. It's like there have always been groundbreakers in every generation, and there've been conservatives in every generation. There's nothing to do with age. It's got to do with temperament.
Yes.
You get really conservative teenagers who are cautious and won't put a foot out, and you get wild ones, and then you get wild elderly people, and you get conservative. But it's about having a range of people in your life and being curious about other people.
Yes. Yeah. You're reminding me, I was listening to Eddie Lenihan, another Seanchaí, and that's his piece, is you just talk to the old people. That's all he says in how he's learnt and how he's found all the stories. And yeah, I feel there's a ringing of truth in that and what you're saying as well.
I was listening to Andres Stack last night. He was performing and he was talking about his father. There's a book, it's in Irish. Delargy was collecting Irish stories from going way back. And they'd gone to one particular village and he collected, had these wax reels and they were collecting stories. And there was this man who used to come into the pub, not always articulate. Yeah. And people kind of accepted him. And someone suggested, we'll interview him. And someone said, don't bother, it'll all be rubbish. And he says, well, we have a little bit left on the disc, we'll do it. And it turned out to be an absolute gem. They came back. Wow. And they recorded him and produced a book. Everybody else had dismissed it because he was a bit of a rambler, not always articulate, but when he got into the flow, the torrent, of gold came out of stories. And it's never to dismiss so-and-so because they don't particularly attractive or they're not dressed particularly well. I'm always amazed. I do a live stream every Thursday for members of the Order. And the idea was that I would be having a conversation with the ordinary members, not the ones with the big names. And I discovered there are no ordinary members in the Order. People are all so fascinating and so interesting. I mean, they don't have bells and whistles and they don't come, with feathers in their caps. Ordinary looking people. Yeah. And you go, wow, listen to that story or this person's journey from there to here. I think most of us think that we don't have much to tell. I came from small town in the middle of the bog and everything was ordinary, and to somebody else that's an amazing story because they'll find some little gem, some little sign of resilience or creativity that you have maybe dismissed or not even aware of, that spark can inspire somebody else.
And what's that moment for you? Do you remember when you heard a story that it was your favorite moment or the one that really inspired you?
There's so many now. I always hate those questions, like what's your favorite film, piece of music? Because at this point, I don't know, was I listening to somebody tell a story in the first person? That was a moment. There's Ethna Massey. She's a story. She's written some of the myths. What is it called? Enchanting Ireland. And there's one of them, she tells a story of Aoife, actually. And that really inspired me to have my own version of that. Oh, wait a second. Now, light bulbs went off. Here is the woman telling her story. And the Aoife story is really interesting because she's the second wife and she's jealous and she turns the kids, because she's horrible and she's evil, and she turns the children into a swan. And I go, hold on a minute. This is a really wounded woman who has not been loved. And when we're not loved, we act out and we do terrible things. So it's not just the jealous woman and dismiss them as like all women are like that type of thing, because that is the narrative. Yeah. So I never tell stories about jealous women. I talk about this is how she feels. It doesn't condone the behavior of anyone who's done bad things, but it's about an insight into what brought them there. And maybe if we can look at that, then maybe we have to think about how we treat people. Yeah. And the importance of love. That when you look at the big players in the world now and the level of destruction, and you read about their childhoods, they're all coming from a place of trauma and never been good enough. And they're always trying to strive. And no matter what they have, it's never enough. They're not enough and they have not got enough. Yeah. And that is so sad. And then this is where we need to wake up. The rest of the world is like, that's an illusion. That is not something to aspire to, because no matter how much wealth you have, you can't spend it all, and nor can you take it with you. So why not spend time listening to a story or sitting under a tree, breathing with the tree, being with friends or being with your children, listening to the sound of the ocean or the river, or children laughing, sharing a glass of wine with someone or a glass of milk, whatever it is. Time with, rather than constantly trying to prove yourself. And these guys, they're failing miserably because no matter how much they have, they haven't got enough.
Yeah. And how do we, what I hear is you finding humanity and compassion in whether it's the woman from the story or it's these leaders. Like, how do we find that when there's so much pain and torture? How do you sit with that?
What I remember doing some work with the Japanese peace movement, and the baddie in the world was Bush. I can't remember which one it was. And one of the things was, may your mission be accomplished. How the hell can you want George Bush's mission to be accomplished? Yeah, and it's like his divine mission. And I would hear boy racers, screaming around, and then I learned, no, may your mission be accomplished, as in whatever the divine mission. And I say that about these kids or these guys, rather than getting into rah, 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 rah. I just take whatever behind that, may their divine, not their earthly mission be accomplished, because who wants that?
Yes, okay.
And there's also, so when I'm doing my morning reflections and I have a catalogue on my head of all the violence that's perpetrated in the world. And I want to go, and then I go and say a peace prayer, the Druid's peace prayer. So I say that to get me grounded, so that whenever I want to go, okay, I'm not condoning that, but I need to come back here. Okay. And that's when I can spot the butterfly or the ladybird, or have a conversation with you about this. And so much of it is around connection, because the animistic worldview is that we are all connected to everything. Every plant, animal, human, tree, rock, stone, river is connected. And I love this animistic worldview where we are all ensouled. I know the Christian way is that, no, only humans have a soul and the rest of the world doesn't. Funny, I have a friend who's a Druid and he's a Muslim, and he said within Islam, everything has a soul. But he says the difference is that humans don't know what their purpose is. All the others do.
Okay.
Islamic worldview, and I thought that's really, really interesting. So when we look at that, we are all ensouled. So I eat, and I'm full of ensouled beings. They're called parasites, bugs, bacteria, virus, fungi, whatever. And then I'm eating ensouled beings, be they plant or animal, to feed this ensouled being and then the others. And then when I die, this ensouled being will, the physical part of the soul will just feed the next generation of ensouled beings. And so when we have that sense of interconnectedness, then we don't have to think hard about trying to be nice. I don't know if you have children, but when you have children, and if all going well, I think most people care about their children, but that you have that imperative to look after this baby. You don't have to look deep and think hard about, I really should be kinder. I really should pay more attention to my baby when he or she cries, and feed my baby. It comes as an imperative because there is that strong sense of connection. So if we have a strong connection to our community outside our immediate family, or to the plants and the trees, we don't have to try hard to be good and altruistic. It's like altruism is redundant. It's there because we have that imperative to care and be responsible. I'm not responsible for you, but I am responsible in some say I'm co-responsible with the rest of the world for what happens to me.
Yeah.
And if we can share that sense of responsibility, and that can happen through conversations.
Yeah.
When people being volunteers, planting trees together, Meals on Wheels, having an allotment, helping each other. Simple things, bartering economy, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
Is really, really powerful, that we can do things while there's other stuff going on over there. The thing is, we buy into fear around what's happening in the world, that we still have. Well, in my micro community, this is what I can do with these people.
Completely.
Because it's the only thing I can do. It's the only thing I can change. The only thing I can have any kind of impact on is right now. So I'm sitting here in front of my screen talking to you. We're having a conversation. That's what I'm concerned about right now. And I'm hoping, I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm enjoying your interest in, and how what I say, I think, resonates with what you have. Like there's a meeting of two minds here.
Yeah.
Two beings actually who get what we're talking about. That is what's important right now.
Couldn't agree more, because this came to me. It felt like it was channeled to me, and it's not loud. That's not the intention of this, but the voice of this is its own form of activism. So that's my intention. When you say you're like, I want to reclaim the voice of women, I'm like, I really want to reclaim the voices of those people who are brushed under the carpets and those topics. And it doesn't need to be screamed, but it's like, how do we actually speak to it genuinely, maybe educatedly, or just with meaning? And that's my intention in this space.
And so we can, if you're doing this in your ordinary day life, whatever you're doing, having your conversations with the people around you, that grows. And then you have fora like podcasts.
Yeah.
And we're having a conversation. We're still not screaming. We're having a conversation. So somebody can share it with somebody else. That is hugely powerful, because I'm not telling people what to do, because I don't know what they should do. All I can say is this is what works for me. And I don't live a holy life. And I'm not, I still drive a car. I fly. And I don't do it mindlessly, but I am aware that I have a huge impact on the environment, and I do my bit. But all of us has an impact on the environment in which we live.
Yes.
And we can't go back to when we didn't have, but because people have always had an impact.
Mm.
But I suppose it's about being as mindful as we can be about our ensouled brothers and sisters around, all around us.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it
Yeah.
mindfully. I mean, when you think of, you say, hunter-gatherer tribes or indigenous tribes, so they're hunters going off to bring back a deer for dinner. Often they will, talk to the spirit of the deer, do some prayers, maybe do a ritual. And there's that sense of the deer may relinquish its body because its spirit lives on in order to.
Okay.
So really be prayerful that. And I do know that in order for one species to survive, it needs to consume another. Be it an animal or a plant. And we're being consumed. But it's about being grateful that something has happened so that we can live.
Yes.
And when you think of, I remember in school, it used to drive me cracked when the teachers going, and the sacrifices your parents have made to bring you to this school. No. And at times not feeling grateful at all. And then I have 2 children of my own. Yeah, I'm no martyr. And they live away now. But I remember for years and years and years, I could never make any decision without putting them first.
Right.
And now I can say, somebody ring me up, would you like to go? Oh yeah. I can just put on my hat and coat and out the door. But when my children were here and younger, no, I can't. I have to sort all this out. So all that freedom was sacrificed for the sake of my kids. Now, that's what parenting is about. We do give of ourselves to facilitate the growth of another person. And all that needs to be in balance. And when we do it for our kids. And then our kids grow up and then we have to stop doing that and let them do it themselves. And hopefully they look after us and be grateful to us in our old age. But saying that facetiously, but that there's a mutuality of giving and receiving through all that. I think I've gone off piste here, but anyway.
We're still here. I'm still here anyway. And it's funny. I feel like you've even weaved to, was it the story with Sive? And you said the mother, we need to let go. We need to let our children do what they need to do. And it's like, I hear that moving through even in your own story. It's like, eventually we let them go.
And even the adults that we love, if we have a partner or whatever, is to allow them be who they are. And I suppose that is what love is.
Yes. And I feel like you just said something, and we're circling back here a bit now, but what was it? Something about grief is the depth of what I love. What was that? Grief
is the price you pay for love.
Grief is the price you pay
and
for love.
The question is it worth it? And for me, it has been. I know grief. I know really deep, profound grief, but at the same time, I knew, well, this is the price I'm paying for what I did have, and it was worth it. So, and that was really reassuring, I still feel the grief, but it's not as sharp. It's not as intense, but I've been really fortunate to have loved and been loved the way I have. So not everybody gets that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel grief and love they're the same. We must accept one with the other. And
that's right. And there's one of the texts, the Cauldron of Poesy. Can't tell you which century, but it talks about 3 cauldrons in our body: the cauldron of warming, the cauldron of vocation or motion, and the cauldron of knowledge. The Cologuria, the Cora Erinmine, the Cora Sush. And the Cologuria is that everything we need is there. This is what nurtures us, and it's upright. And then when we come up to this part of our heart space, it can be on its side or upside down. In order for it to be upright, you need to have experienced grief and joy.
Beautiful.
And there's 4 kinds of grief, and I can't remember it at the moment, but it's not about having an easy ride. It's your grief that turns this cauldron. And only when that is upright can you write the cauldron of knowledge. And it's funny how we talk about, it's translated as knowledge, but really it's wisdom. We interchange the salmon of knowledge with the salmon of wisdom, but knowledge and wisdom are 2 different things.
Okay. Tell me more about that.
Well, even in Irish, so Olus is knowledge, information, but Fasacht or Crianacht or Agna are wisdom. Different words for it. So you have the Bradon Fasa, Fis. So Fasa is the genitive of Fis. That's, well then, Isagat, that's knowledge, do you know? So it's a really interesting, it's more than just knowledge like facts. It comes with a deep understanding. What would you say? I remember that when I used to teach leadership going a long, long time ago, and I remember coming across this. The difference between leadership and management was a manager knows how to put a ladder against the wall, and the leader knows which wall to put it against. So if I was going to use the same analogy, knowledge is about being able to put the ladder against the wall, and the wisdom is knowing which wall to put it against.
Yeah. And that, do you feel, that's only something I feel can be learnt over time?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And funny about wisdom, you can be wise when you're young. It does come with experience, but you can have wise insights when you're younger. And then there are people who've lived a life and they're not wise. Now, I'm not sure how wise I am. I know that the more I know, the less I know. But then there's some people who have learned nothing. I have learned from my life. I've learned the hard way. And then there are others who still don't learn. And you go, wow. So
I love that. And it's so true. Like it isn't necessarily an age thing, but the one thing I love about age, and I'm 40, I'm turning 41 next month, and I've got a catalogue, and I'm like, you tried that 5 times now, and are you going to try it again the same way? And it's like, no, and I don't need to explain why, and I don't need to justify. It just is because it didn't work. So I now know that we choose a different way. That shouting maybe didn't work, talking worked in that scenario to rectify that situation.
I was having a conversation about this yesterday, and I remember, growing up, if I've told you once, I've told you 100 times, and I keep telling him to do this and he won't. And somebody reminded me of that quotation by Einstein. Madness is doing the same thing hundreds of times and expecting the same result, or and accepting a different result.
Yeah.
And I learned this from psychotherapy. It's like, why keep doing the same thing that doesn't work? If it's not working, try something else. When you see medicine doing the same thing over and over again, psychiatry doing the same thing over and over again, it's not working, take more. It's like, no, try something else. And that's wisdom.
Yeah.
But it takes courage to do something that isn't familiar. Like I always do it this way. It doesn't work, but at least I know it. That's not working. So try something. That's the scary bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Pushing the comfort zone.
That's right.
So what is the life lesson now at this stage? Is there a lesson that you are like, this is how I live my life, or this is the greatest lesson I learned?
Sit still and listen. I speak fast. I walk fast. I'm busy. I love zooming around the place. I'm not a sit still, mindful meditator. I never have been. To hell with that. I'll walk a labyrinth. I'll walk in the woods. But there is something about sitting still with the trees and listening, sharing your breath with them. And the thing about this is so simple. I remember when I started on this path and being at a workshop, and now we're going to sit in our chair, we're going to get comfortable, and we're going to focus on our breath and be aware of our body. And I used to hate this. I used to go, oh God, what is the purpose of being aware of my feet on the floor and my arms on the chair and then my breath? And I did it because I'm a good girl and I didn't want to be rude or anything. And I'd be practicing, and then one day it dropped. I feel it. But I had to go through, I hate this stuff, and they're all not quite Holy Marys and Joes, just being able to, and I'm hating all of this. And then it happened. I got it. And now I know when I can sit. And I don't have to do it for 2 hours. It can be for a minute, just focusing on your breath and sitting still and listening to a tree, wherever the tree is. It doesn't have to be off in the middle of a forest. It can be in the park. It could be outside your street or in your front lawn or whatever. And noticing the ordinary, noticing, when are the buds coming? First time you see the first ladybird of the year, the first butterflies. It's been lovely, but I know with this heat wave, but I have so many butterflies in the garden.
Yeah.
And years ago, we always had lots of butterflies, and then we didn't. And I noticed this year. And it's not so much the numbers of butterflies, but the variety of species.
Yeah.
And, touching plants as you go along. It's that kind of greeting trees and saying hi and trying. And I mean, I know my trees. I know the trees here, easy peasy. But I always love when I'm in a new landscape. I'm up in Leitrim or I'm someplace else and I'm just checking out who's here. I love that. That really excites me. And that's really simple.
Yeah. Yeah. And maybe like what I hear from you is that our medicine might be the polarity. Like if you're a busy person, it's the sitting still and listening, and that maybe is less time for you, but so impactful.
And you need to do it to find it, because I struggled with the doing of it, or of the not doing the busy to be doing the stillness. And then I got it. It's just the beauty of that 5 minutes, 10 minutes that you can do it. And just time, if you're going to a party and you don't know anybody, and you're looking, is there anyone? Well, I'm really, really shy.
Yeah.
And if you can do that when you're going for a walk in the park or the woods, is just check and see, do you know who the trees are? And I remember, start off with, say, with a hawthorn, maybe or an oak tree. It's easy enough to recognize an oak tree. Some you might not be sure, what's this one? And once you get to know one, then you always look out for that one. Then you learn another one, and then you look out for that. That's how I started. And excitement. And I still get excited seeing who's here and how many of our native trees are here. I just love that because then I feel at home. Because then I'm part of this landscape, they're part of my landscape.
Yeah, that's such a good analogy because we all know that little moment where you're like, oh, who's here? When you do that to the trees.
And I think sometimes we feel alienated from our landscape, or when we're alienated from ourselves. Yeah, I'm not good enough. What all the other stuff that goes off. And then do I belong here? Do I belong in my family? Do I belong in this work? Are these really my friends? I don't know. But just start with the landscape. And it can be the park. It doesn't even have to be your property. You may not have it, but just checking to see and find a tree that you connect with. You'll find one that some you'll pass by, you won't even notice, and others you go. And it doesn't have to be a majestic tree. It can be, there's a really interesting, rowan trees and also you can learn from how trees are. There's a rowan tree in Carrickeel in Sligo. Yeah. And it's very old. The trunk is about this length, but it comes out from a crack in a wall. So it's about that. That's all. And it has a canopy. Here is a tree that has been cramped and controlled, and it's flourishing. It produces fruit every year and it comes out of a rock, and it's old because the trunk is quite. And there's another place I think it's near Ninian's Cave in Scotland. There's a hawthorn tree. The canopy is on the stony beach. The trunk is could be 2 inches tall. Because of the winds, it would never survive. So I thought, okay, my canopy will survive, but it's going to be just along the ground. And we can learn from plants, you know. Yeah,
I feel that when you see something growing the other way up a cliff, but it's still arduous journey. It has been through suffering and challenge.
That's right. And it's not tall, you know, so-called majestic. It's like it's gnarled, twisted. And there's a huge beauty in that as well. And it's like every line and wrinkle on your face is a testimony to every lesson learned, every joyous experience, you know, every heartache, but every smile, you know, eventually leaves a mark on your face. Like that in a tree. It's like that tree tells a story. Just look at it and how it has survived.
Well, I'm definitely going to take that one with me, Eimear, when next time I see a group of trees. So the last question I have for you is, what do you think remains unspoken in Ireland? And what do you think would change if we did actually speak to it?
I think it's about our connection with the land and the language. I know the language is coming up, but you know, so much of when I was growing up, you know, it's a poor country. We thought the Yanks were amazing and sophisticated and all of that. Then we joined the EU and that made a change. Yeah. And I remember, you know, Boomtown Rats, you know, the Banana Republic, and we were the only third world country where it snowed and all this kind of stuff, and how we were, yada, yada. And then we've modernized and all of that and gotten over our shame of being colonized, etc. We have not gone back to connect with our land. And I do think it's about sitting on the land, sitting with the trees and coming back to our language. I mean, the language is getting a revival thanks to, well, there've always been people doing it. But when you think of in modern culture with, you know, musicians and things using the language, and it's now quite hip and not, which is lovely. Coming back to our landscape, because there's no point looking at techno and technology. When you think of all the investment that's come in, isn't that great? Now we're all doing well for ourselves. We're paying a price for that. And I think we need to come back and sit with the land and talk about it.
Yeah, that comes back, Eimear. Sit on the land and listen.
And maybe our politicians might do that too. You know, because I think when we're on the land, then we come back to notions of justice, peace, non-appropriation. Because when you think of the way the world is going on with genocides and appropriation and horrendous violence and the lack of justice, and it's you kind of go, what? It's so unreasonable. I mean, that sounds really bland when I say that. But there is no rhyme nor reason to this, because the way the world is going, it's not benefiting anybody. Even the people that imagine that it's benefiting, like I say, because they haven't got enough anyway, they never will. Yeah. There is enough space for everybody. There's that notion of our soul. There's a guy called Bill Plotkin. I can't remember the title of his book, but he talks about finding your soul as knowing where you belong, knowing your place in the world. And I'm not talking about where you are in the hierarchy, but when you have a sense of place, that's where your soul is. And what happens is that people don't have a sense of place. They don't know where they belong, and they want to take land from somebody else. Yes. In an attempt to find that. Now, they're not conscious of this is where my soul is, but actually, when you steal land from somebody else, your soul doesn't land there. Yeah. So they're seeking what they don't have. And what they shouldn't have. Yes. But it's not where they're looking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's about finding your own place in the world. Where is that?
Yeah.
If you look at brambles, they root wherever they are. Ivy roots wherever it finds itself. You can put down roots. You don't have to steal from somebody else. Though the ivy and brackens can be a bit naughty and a bit invasive as well. But taking it from somebody else isn't working, isn't the answer.
Yeah. So just finding that sense of self within ourselves. It's even, as we started, like what you said, Druidry it's the inner world mirroring the outer world. Yeah. And I feel I've learned that lesson from you today. It's like, just sit and listen and be with the land. And we know that. But I'm so curious what would happen, if our leaders did that. What would shift and change? So, Sinead Eimear, Garamila Mahagut.
Boro, so Garamila.
Garamila fashion. August, where can people find you? If people want to look you up, I'll share the links and all the jazz.
Okay, well, I'm on Instagram. It's Eimear Burke Druid, I think. Eimear Burke _Druid. And then I'm on Facebook as well, Eimear Burke Druid Seanchaí. And then I have a website, kilkennydruidry.com. And then the website for the order is druidry.org.
Great. I'll share all of those. And just, wisdom flowing in many ways, but I really heard your reclaiming of the feminine voice through mythology and through your own voice and storytelling, and constantly letting the land inform us, and groundedness, grounded, real language.
It's dull and ordinary without the tinsel, that's where it's at. Yeah.
There's mystic in the mundane.
Of course there is. Absolutely. Yeah.
Sinead.